Looking farther into the speaker's family in the second set of parentheses helps shed light on why all of these problems are occurring in Native American communities. His family does not seem to be affected by any of the tragedies that were mentioned in the previous parentheses, but is a way for him to show why many Indians take the actions that they have. The answer Alexei gives to the next set of parentheses leads to the conclusion that it is a loss of culture and identity. He represents this loss through ailments that point toward whites settling in America. The mention of the grandfather dying in Okinawa, shot by a Japanese soldier who must have looked so much like him, shows that he fought for America Okinawa in World War II. Despite the fact that whites pushed Indians west and took their land, he was still willing to fight for America. However, he was fighting someone who looked just like him, which is a reference to how Native Americans are thought to have migrated to America from Asia. Geneticists at the University of Illinois say in reference to Native Americans that before spreading across the Americas, the ancestral population paused in Beringia long enough for specific mutations to accumulate that separate the New World founder lineages from their Asian sister-clades. This points to specific distinctions Native Americans seem to have from Asians today, but supports the theory of Asians and Native Americans having similar ancestors. Both the contrasts and similarities of certain cultures is evident here, from the conflicting interests of Native American culture with modern American culture, to the striking genetic similarities between Asians and Native Americans. Alexei is suggesting that the grandfather has lost his culture because he is fighting for a country that introduced his people to alcoholism, gave his wife tuberculosis, and denied his people's right to live on certain areas of land in America. He is supporting a country that has done all of this to his people while fighting against another country where his ancestors could have possibly come from. The link between the tragedy Native Americans face today, white settlements in America, and the loss of culture for Native American community could still be questioned up until the last 3 lines of the last parenthetical section are presented. These last lines, "And this is my grandmother who saw, before the white man came, 3 ravens with white necks, and knew our God was going to change," are a way to strengthen this link and erase any doubts held up until now about whether or not white settlements led to loss of culture within the Native American community. The author placed this quote at the end of the section to emphasize that white settlement ultimately resulted in loss of culture for many Native Americans. His grandmother knew that the whites would change the world when seeing the ravens with white necks, but the speaker never lets us know if she knew how the world would change. He leaves it open-ended, but does this so the tragedies explained before these last lines can be pieced together and show how Native Americans lost their culture. After looking at the whole poem, it becomes clear that the tragedies that Native Americans are experiencing now are a direct result of white settlements in America. White settlement led to the oppression of many Native Americans and alcoholism among many, which in turn led to other ailments including prostitution, poverty, and ultimately a lack of family values. The effects start off this poem and the cause ends it, with the effects for exaggeration of despair being tragedy and loss of culture, and the cause being whites settling in America. Normally, cause becomes before effect. However, Alexei avoids this, knowing many subtle hints could be overlooked if done this way. These subtle hints, including alcoholism and lack of family values, paired with strategic repetition of these tragedies, set up the question of why are all of these tragedies so prevalent in Native American communities. The answer is given throughout the second section of parentheses. The answer, which is white settling in America, has led to many tragedies for Native Americans, including alcoholism and lack of family, which in turn has led to many other tragedies. The speaker strengthens this bond between loss of culture and white settlements in America one last time when he opens the door and invites the wind inside. This signifies that the speaker is Native American himself, and he has been affected by these tragedies as well. He witnessed the tragedies of many Native Americans, as is hinted in the first set of parentheses, and in the second set of parentheses, his own family saw the beginning of all this tragedy when the whites first came. This is not just a hollow belief held by the speaker, but it is instead supported by the speaker's repetition of specific tragedies that have affected and still do affect many Native American cultures today, including himself. He has recognized that loss of culture affects many Native American communities and has tried to gain insight into why this is by looking at his past memories. His memories support the claim that it is because of white settling in America that this loss of culture occurred.